Hey, it's Cool Cleveland correspondent Carol Drummond. I'm here with Professor Edward Olszewski. He is a Professor Emeritus of Renaissance Art Studies, 39 years teaching at Case Western Reserve University. And he's giving a talk at the Sculpture Center about Cleveland's free stamp sculpture and its context internationally. So he's going to tell us about that talk. Thanks so much for meeting with me today.
Oh, you're welcome, Carol.
Oh,
delighted to be here.
Well, we've picked an appropriate spot. We've got a great background here, right in front of the free sculpture. I think everybody in Cleveland knows about this sculpture.
They better by now, I would think, yes.
Well, if they don't, they can learn more about it
Great,
on the
let's hope.
12th. Hey, I was thinking about your Renaissance art studies and how the sculpture is right here in the middle of the United States, and it's a contemporary sculpture. And how do you get from your studies in Italian Renaissance art to this?
Well, very easily, because Michelangelo's David was a public sculpture that was outdoors in Florence in the early 16th century. So there's one connection.
Okay.
In one sense, there's no connection, except that as a Renaissance art historian, I live in the 21st century. And so as someone who lives in the 21st century, I feel just as Renaissance patrons supported their artists, that I should support contemporary artists.
Very good. I hadn't thought of that.
So that's my interest in contemporary art. Not only Oldenburg, but Cleveland art as well. And I collect a lot of Cleveland art.
Oh, very cool.
So it works in spite of my Renaissance interest.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So the history of the free stamp. Now, there's been a lot of controversy about why it landed here and its history. Why don't you give us just a brief synopsis of what that's about?
Well, if you look at where the free stamp is pointing, you'll see the old BP building, and that's where it was originally intended to go. But when Ohio was bought out by British Petroleum, and the executives of BP came to Cleveland, they rejected the sculpture. Without giving any good reason. They just said it was inappropriate. And I think that in part there was really no tradition in England for sculpture related to architecture. So they didn't have the same feel for it that we do. And also in England particularly, pop art was a little harsher and a little nastier than in the United States. It had a political edge to it that pop art in America did not.
Okay.
And so I think they were a little suspicious of that aspect of it as well.
Kind of feared those intonations and what that meant, yeah.
And so they, the executives gave the sculpture to the city of Cleveland, and so you see it here next to City Hall. And the mayor at the time was George Voinovich.
Okay.
And George Voinovich accepted the work, but George Forbes, who was head of city council, said if it wasn't good enough for BP, it wasn't good enough for Cleveland.
Oh, no.
And so for 3 years, the work was in limbo while people tried to decide where to put it and what to do with it. The sculptors, of course, claimed that it was site-specific. And as a result, they said if it didn't go in front of BP, it no longer existed as sculpture. And there we were at a deadlock.
Okay.
Finally, however, we had a new mayoral election, and Michael White replaced Mayor Voinovich, and George Forbes, who had run against Michael White for mayor, lost and was no longer head of city council. And so now the work was accepted, and Willard Park was donated for the site. And so here it is next to City Hall, as a work donated to the citizens of Cleveland. So like Picasso's sculpture in Chicago, this belongs to the citizenry. So anyone can come here and take a photograph, make postcards, do anything they want with it.
Shoot videos?
Shoot videos,
okay.
And they don't have to pay a cent in royalties.
It's free.
It's free.
Fantastic. Oh, that's great. So it sounds like that's very much a local civic context for the sculpture.
Right. Now with the sculptors, as I said, they thought that the work no longer existed. It was rejected as a site-specific sculpture, so it had to be rethought.
Okay.
And in that 3-year interim where nothing was happening, the sculpture was in 74 pieces in a warehouse in Kankakee, Illinois, in the ironworks that fabricated it. It's 74,000 pounds of half-inch steel, and it's been crafted to a tolerance of 1/8 of an inch. So this is quite an accomplishment.
Wow.
And it was brought here then and placed on its side. It was cropped, and Kosha von Bruggen, the wife of Claes Oldenburg, said that they thought that this was appropriate for it because it looked like it had been thrown out of the window of BP.
Wow, flotsam and jetsam, huh?
If you align it with BP, it points to the corporate offices of the old British Petroleum.
There they are. Very cool. Very cool. So internationally, now the subject of your discussion at the Sculpture Center deals with the international context for
At the time that Cleveland was debating whether or not we should accept this and what to do with it, the Oldenburgs were installing a sculpture in Paris, in a park in a suburb, a cultural park just outside of Paris. And they were also installing a work in Miami. At the same time, they were negotiating with a large sculpture for Barcelona, for the Olympics in Barcelona.
Okay.
So there was all of this going on, and of course Oldenburg is known throughout the world, from Japan to Europe, and has numerous sculptures, not only in Paris and Barcelona, but in Otterloo, Holland, and Kassel, Germany, and many other places. So he is very much an international artist, and unfortunately the corporate executives at BP didn't seem to appreciate that, nor did many of the politicians in Cleveland at the time, although there were many who supported the installation of the sculpture here.
Okay.
So
there's much more
that,
to
I think,
it.
is the international context. Yes, I mean, this is a very important artist who's highly regarded, known throughout the world, and exhibited throughout the world.
Yes.
And he is a marvelous draftsman. He does not only these large outdoor sculptures, but lithographs and graphic work. His soft sculptures are famous as something that he innovated during the pop art period.
A little earlier on in his
Manhattan,
career.
right, in the 60s.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, thank you for that. So we
You're
can
welcome.
hear the entire talk on October 12th at 7 p.m. at the Sculpture
That's
Center.
correct.
Okay. And if we want to know more about that,
you can contact the Sculpture Center.
Okay.
I don't have the number handy, but
okay. Well, it's sculpturecenter.org, and now that's it. I know the address is 1834 East 123rd. I think of it as being on Euclid, though.
It's just off Euclid Avenue near Lakeview Cemetery.
Right at the northern intersection
exactly,
there.
where the founder of Sohio is buried, John D. Rockefeller.
Oh, really?
So,
very interesting.
So there you have another connection.
Yes.
And in fact, one of the sites that was being considered was the Free Clinic, which would seem to be appropriate, and it's right across the street from the cemetery where John D. Rockefeller is buried. So
yes, well,
there are a lot of connections.
Isn't there a free clinic right across the street from the Sculpture Center
yes,
as well?
Exactly.
Yes, it's all free.
It's all free.
So speaking of free, what is the cost for someone attending your talk at the Sculpture Center?
There it is.
It's free.
It's free.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you so much. This has been great.
There are a lot of things I could have said about this. Well, of course, we only had a few minutes.
This is Cool Cleveland correspondent Carol Drummond. Have a great week in Cool Cleveland.
Free clinic.
A great week. This is. Thank you so. Thank you so. This is a great week. 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 This is a great week.
Free clinic.
It's Cleveland.
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 Free clinic. About Stop. 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 Stop.
A great week. This is 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 a great week. This is
Stop.
a great week. This is a great week. This is a great week. Yep.
Clinic.
Cleveland.
Clinic.
Cleveland.
Clinic.
Cleveland.
Clinic.
Cleveland.
Clinic.
Cleveland.
Clinic.
Cleveland.
Clinic.
Cleveland. She's so. She's so. She's so. Cleveland.
Clinic.
Cleveland.
Clinic.
Cleveland. A great week. This is. She's so. 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 She's so.